Good morning, Reverend Terry Ryan.
Good morning.
I'm Norman D. Ellis, and I'm interviewing Reverend Terry Ryan on the grounds of Camp Chesterfield. So thanks for doing this with us.
Happy to.
Yeah. So can you tell me a little bit? I know you have a house on the grounds that you share with Reverend Cataract. Can you
Yes.
tell me about a little bit about what you're doing now in Michigan?
In my spiritual work, or just,
Yes. Well,
yep,
both. Yes.
both them. I still have a full-time job. I'm working in HIV/AIDS. I've been doing that for 33 years. Uh, and probably next year I'll look at segueing out of my day job because I'm getting busy enough in my metaphysical and spiritual work that my day job's getting in the way. So, in addition to that, I've taught development class in the Detroit area for more than 25 years, and continue to do that. And then 8 years ago, with two people who were my former students who are now ordained, Reverend Charles Kilpadlow and Reverend Elizabeth Brown, we founded a once-a-month group called Temple of the Sun on the second Sunday evening of each month. So we've been doing that for 8 years. It's modeled along a spiritual church service, but more New Agey and less structured perhaps. And so that's one of our great endeavors as well.
Okay, so that leads me into a question I was going to
Yes.
ask you about, which is how those early spiritual precepts that are part of the IAOS and the
Yes.
National Association, how have you adapted those for your work now?
I think that the precepts that we follow here, the fundamental stuff, is timeless and ageless. And I think it is applicable no matter where we are, what kind of movement we're working in. And so, as a spiritualist, looking at those principles that I feel to be timeless, I feel that they are adaptable. And so we adhere, if you will, to the same philosophy that's core to spiritualism in general, while also structurally allowing for us to work with more people. We use our students in Detroit to also work at Temple of the Sun as a way to get some experience and practice. But yeah, when you have timeless principles, I think you can carry that through many kinds of endeavors.
Right, that's great. So what year did you first come here and what drew you?
Around 1983-ish, okay? I was living in Detroit at that time. Reverend James Hafer, who has a house on the grounds now, is the person that I've known longest in my life now. We've been friends for 40 years. And he had finished school in nursing school in Kalamazoo, Michigan, was getting his first job in the Detroit area, needed a place to live, and so he moved in with me because I had a spare room. Some months after he had moved, he said to me, he said, you know, my mother has been down to Indiana to this place called Camp Chesterfield. We started talking about that. And Jim had seen a few books on my shelf that were kind of related to mediumship, spirit communication. I said, wow, we should make a trip down there sometime. And so he and I and four other friends made a weekend trip down here in 1983, and the rest is history. It was a weekend right after August seminar, and so there were no scheduled activities, and the grounds are very quiet and peaceful. And we got here and started exploring, and the early twilight of that night we went down to the trail of, down to the Garden of Prayer, which I just call the grotto, and we went in and lit candles and meditated and had some phenomenal experiences there. The six of us, after a while, saw the hands of Jesus move, and then we saw two nuns, one standing on either side of him, and all six of us just sat there in the quiet and watched us for a long, long time. And that was our first experience. We'd been on the grounds maybe an hour. But that same weekend we met Pat Kennedy, who became a wonderful friend and teacher, and then the rest is history.
That's great, that's great. Do you still go down to the Garden of Prayer when you're here?
From time to time, yes I do. Yeah.
Right. Tell me a little bit about Reverend Patricia Kennedy. She's one of the older mediums. In fact, I think she may be the oldest medium living on the grounds now. Tell me a little bit about meeting her and your experience.
The next day, as we were, this had occurred on a Friday evening. The next day on Saturday we had our good news book. We were walking around and trying to figure out the lay of the land, so to speak, knocking on doors looking for readings. But we were walking down Parkview, and Patty was standing on her porch, sweeping her porch. And so we began to engage in conversation. And then, of course, as it happens at camp, one thing led to another. And we had readings with her and began going to seances that she held. And in her day, Patty was a phenomenal physical phenomena medium. And we had some terrific experiences with her. She also introduced us to her teacher at that time, who was Reverend Austin Wallace. And Austin had been Patty's mentor, and we struck up a friendship with Austin, as well as attending classes and seances that he gave. But we also became friends and considered him to be a mentor, and still do, even though he's in the world of spirit.
Right. Now, some people think of Camp Chesterfield and they often say, oh, my mother came for seances and they told me about the physical mediumship.
Yes.
Can you tell, for people who don't know what that is, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there are two kinds of mediumship. Mental, which is the clairvoyance, the clairaudience, and those gifts. Our ability to see, hear, sense, feel, even smell spirit if there's perfumes or tobacco smoke present. And then physical mediumship is the ability of spirit to use a medium who has the right body and the right body chemistry to produce what we call phenomena, which would be the levitation of trumpets, spirit card writing, apports, and other kinds of things that would be what we would consider to be otherworldly, or some people would, in that they are not normally explainable by our physical laws of science.
Right, and we at Camp Chesterfield have the best spirit phenomena museum in the country, I think.
I think we do. I think
Yes.
we really, really do, yes.
Yes. Okay, so tell me a little bit about your very early experiences with spirit and your spiritual gifts.
Oh, golly. Being a Capricorn sun and a Virgo rising and being double earth, spirits had to drag me or push me really in my entire journey, because the logical mind always wants to be in control. And everything that occurs from the spirit world defies the traditional logic that we have in our physical world. So my struggle has always been to, if you will, cast myself against type and free myself of my own limitations as being so concrete. Came to a point in time in my development classes here that my spirit doctor, Dr. Fitzpatrick, finally said to me one day, he said, it's very simple. You can do what I tell you to do or not, and it's just going to be that way. And so we've always had this kind of agreement. They know exactly how to work with me and get me to do what they feel I need to do. So my challenge has always been to let loose the imagination and the creative side and let spirit work with me. And that's a journey. Everything is a journey in your spiritual growth. There's no final destination and all of that. So I have worked primarily with that over the years, continuing to improve that.
Okay. Well, that sort of leads me to think that because of all that earth energy you talked about in your
Yes.
chart, that would make you a very good teacher of one of your specialties, which is natural law.
Yes. Yeah, it's short story maybe here around teaching. It never occurred to me, it was never in my mind that I would want to teach or might even be able to teach. And if it had not been for my development teacher, Reverend Louise E. Irvine, I might never have wound up teaching, or I might have been many, many years delayed. But because I had purchased a house next door to Reverend Louise Irvine and was in her development class, and she was president of the camp at that time, one fine afternoon, I was out in the yard and she came to her porch and went like this. And I went to the porch and she said, August seminary is in 2 weeks and you're going to teach meditation, so you better start putting your notes together. And one never said no to Louise. But I'm thinking in my mind, oh my God, of all the things she wants me to teach, meditation. But that's how I got started teaching, and then began to discover that I liked it, and it seems that most people enjoy my teaching as well. Where natural law was concerned, it so appealed to my nature because even the phenomena of spirit works on principles of law, principles of science, and that structure, of course, I understand that, which became a major appeal for me.
Right, great. Thank you. That was really good explanation. I appreciate that. So you said that you studied with Reverend Louise. How did you study? How long did you study with her, and what were some of her main teachings?
I'm a poor judge of time, so I'm going to have to give you a guesstimate. I think we probably started studying with Louise around, we came here in 83, 1985, 86, when we kind of worked up the courage to ask her if we could join her development class. And that would be, of course, Reverend James Hafer and myself, and other contemporaries at that time would have been Linda Ritchie, Reverend Linda Ritchie, and Reverend Glenda Cataract. We were all contemporaries and kind of started together with Louise. And stayed with her in development class until she chose, due to failing health, not to teach classes anymore. Even after we were all ordained, she tried to kick us out of class, we wouldn't go. Seriously. And so Louise truly was my mentor, and among the many things that she imparted to all of us were issues of ethics and principle and standards in your mediumship and how you deal with the public. And she would not compromise at all on standards related to mediumship. And from that, I know for certain that Reverend Hafer and Reverend Cataract and myself, we have zero tolerance for individuals that don't take this seriously, fluff it off, try to fake their way through it. Zero tolerance for that. And that came from Louise. I think an important thing that she taught us early on, which I still continue to impart to students, is around the business of psychic self-defense. Early on in class, some students were concerned about spirits coming close to them that they did not want to be there. And Louise's statement was that if you think you have something to be fearful of, then you do. Her point being that if you have fears, you are opening a door through the law of attraction and natural law, like attracts like. Your fears will draw to you those whom you think you need to fear. If you have no fear whatsoever, the strength of your own light, your own auric field, and your adherence to the best and highest standards will always create a vibrational range around you and a light that will not allow those entities to come close to you. Because again, like attracts like, you only draw to yourself spirits of like vibration.
Right.
And I think that was one of the most important principles she taught us early on.
Yeah, that's great. Who were some of the other mediums, other than Reverend Louise and Reverend Patricia, that you sat with or had classes with over and over again?
Among our earliest teachers and mentors were Reverend Shirley Schroge and Reverend Wynne Schroge. And we spent many a visit down here, not necessarily in formal classes with them, although we did take classes from them during seminaries. We'd go to their house, and we'd all be sitting on the floor in the living room, just in informal chats with Wynne and Shirley. Hi, babe. And how are you? You want to come up here? You can come up here. Come on. And just chatting and learning so much. From Reverend Shirley Schroge, I adapted methodology that I use in my teaching was the use of index cards. 3x5 index cards, or 4x6s, anyway, large ones. Because I like Shirley's approach to that, because you can add new information, take cards out, and use it as a basis. You know, I have written handouts I give to students, but for my own personal notes, I love that system. rather than trying to type up notes, working from that, retyping and revising. I love that card system because you can insert and take out things that you want to work with.
Good.
So I've adapted that from Shirley from watching her work. So we learned a lot from them.
All right, wonderful. How about mediums on the platform that you enjoyed watching?
Yes. Oh my. Reverend Gladys Strom, who was a medium here many years. And Gladys passed away, I think, at like 98 a few years ago. She probably did this work for more than 70 years. And she was a great mental medium, a great physical medium, and to watch her work, watched her do blindfold billets so often, and just rapid fire, just nailed it, put it out there. And when her time was up, she would say, "My guides are telling me it's 12 after 10, it's time to quit." It'd be exactly what the clock said. I mean, and phenomenal. We watched Reverend Bill English and Reverend Austin Wallace on the platform, and so many. Reverend Louise Irvine, many of the old guard. Just a joy to watch. A joy to watch. Reverend Suzanne Greer, and Susie was a joy because in her kind of personal flamboyancy, a little bit in her personality. She was so fun to watch. I remember getting a message from her one time. She's on the platform, and she reached out to me to speak to me, and she said, oh my God, I don't know what to do. There are two men here both claiming to be your father. And I don't know what to do. I said, yes, Suzanne, my stepfather and my father. You're exactly right. But she, oh my God. There are two men here both claiming to be your father. So that's Suzanne. I was like, oh yes,
Right.
fun. And one of my very, 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 very favorites was Reverend Sarah Brown. Reverend Sarah Brown, being Southern, had a kind of graciousness to her that was like attracting ants to honey. She might be in the platform, she might only wind up doing 6 flame messages. While she was speaking to the congregation, people absolutely loved because her whole style and approach was so unique and so enjoyable that we just loved Reverend Sarah Brown on the platform. So mediumship is not about cookie cutter mediumship. It's about following some fundamental principles, but then using the individual personality to wrap it in.
Right.
Yeah.
Not too many people remember Bill English. Can you tell me a little bit about him? I mean, he's legendary, but I
Yes.
haven't talked with a lot of people who knew him in person.
Yes. Wonderful man with a kind of a dry humor. He owned the house where Reverend Glenda Cataract and I now live. Went to many seances with Bill and became friends with him, and after seances, some of us would get a chance to go out to dinner with Bill. And we learned so much at dinner and the conversations afterward as we did any other time. He was an absolutely terrific physical phenomena medium. Trumpet mediumship, apports, spirit card writing, pictures on silk, many, many wonderful gifts. The experiences we had there are truly unique. Bill's trumpets, he had 3, and he had illuminated bands around the bell of the trumpet. And when we got started in there, up the 3 of them would go, and they would chase each other around the ceiling, around the room. And then the spirit was talking. The 3 of them would be side by side for a while, kind of bent down towards the audience. And then 2 would sit down, and 1 would be up. And I mean, terrific. One of the most, and I have many spirit cards from Bill, probably 30 or 40. One of the most memorable seances that we went to. We took our shoes off and tucked them under our chairs. My friend Andy was sitting next to me, and I don't know if it was a card seance or just trumpet seance. I don't remember. We were in the dark anyway. So our shoes were underneath our chairs. So the lights came up afterward, and Andy had penny loafers. And he went to put his foot in his penny loafer. He said, "Ow!" And stuck in his penny loafer was a spear point about this long inside of his loafer underneath his chair. Well, I looked down, and behind the heel of my shoe was a seashell about that large around with a white horse carved in the top, and that is my guide, White Horse, one of my guides, White Horse. And it was behind my shoe,
Wow.
underneath my chair. And so I feel fortunate that I and Jim and a few others came here near the end of the heyday of physical phenomena at that time at camp, and had an opportunity to know those people, sit with them, learn from them. That was a grand experience. I feel very fortunate.
Okay, so this is an off-topic question, but do you feel that there is a newer or more recent development that will come after physical phenomenon that's going on
Yes,
now?
it already is.
All right, can you talk a little about that?
After the last physical phenomenon was gone here, and over the next 20 years probably, much of this discussion that went on here among staff and students and elsewhere in the country is physical phenomena going to come back? And there were many opinions that it wasn't needed anymore, that it had sufficiently proved the continuity of life, didn't need it, be all about mental mediumship. Some of us, including myself, did not believe that. And there is now a resurgence of the development of physical phenomena. Some of what occurred before, but also I think many new kinds of things are in the process of development. So we discussed about, some of us, about why. Now, of course, this is conjecture, but coming out of the end of the Piscean age, a water sign, and physical phenomena used a lot of ectoplasm drawn from the medium's body in order to help support and produce physical phenomena. But we're moving now into the early stages of the Aquarian age, which is an air sign, electricity. And so I have come to find there's a great deal more electromagnetic energy beginning to be manipulated by spirit, and not quite so much of the ectoplasm. And also a resurgence in physical phenomena. Yes.
That's great. Thank you. That's a wonderful answer. Can you say a little bit about, I've noticed there's like a Michigan, Indiana pipeline of mediums who have come down, well, since John Bunker and even earlier on. Can you talk a little bit about that influence?
Well, you know, the Midwest, and including Ohio, Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana were very, very strong centers of spiritualism. There were a lot of smaller camps in Ohio and Michigan, and still remain a few, in addition to Chesterfield being here. But because of camps' predominance as a old center starting in 1886, 1888, and also the approach we take here to teaching mediumship was a terrific draw for people from all over to come here and study, people like John Bunker. And because of camp's prominence in the United States, there were a lot of mediums who really wanted to come and work here, and sometimes had to line up because the houses were full, the board was very strict about who they would allow on the grounds, but it became a center or a magnet. But a lot of people had their early trainings, development and stuff in the Ohio, Indiana, Michigan area.
Mm-hmm. And now I know that you work with the education committee now. Can you tell me what it means to be a Chesterfield medium as opposed to any other type of mediumship?
Still to this day, I think our approach to mediumship development is unique in that we focus so much on hands-on work with students. There are other spiritualist education centers around the country that have pretty good curricula, some really great studies, some great classes, but they, for a variety of reasons, have not set up mechanisms to help mentor the students. They have been dependent on their individual churches when that student got home to provide that training and mentorship. And we really insist on the student getting a lot of practical work here, as you know, through development classes, attending seminars, to really get some of the stuff, the basics in. And that has made a difference in terms of the style and quality of mediumship. For a long, long time, and still among old-timers who recognize that if a Chesterfield medium went anywhere else in the country, it would be recognized by their style of work, our approach to that. Because there's a good deal of structure involved that we teach in order for a budding medium to be able to learn how to best grasp the energies that Spirit will bring and work with, so that they can actually maximize the quality of their work. So we have a very unique style here still. I watched a visiting medium recently teaching a weekend workshop here, who travels all over the world, and was going to speak about evidential mediumship, but after attending the workshop I didn't learn anything, and other than the fact that we still have a very good system here.
Right. That's always a good thing to know. Now, what year were you ordained?
Oh, let me see. Good question. I moved here full-time in 1995, got my medium missionary papers that year, but didn't get ordained until much later. It was not my objective to be ordained.
Mm-hmm.
But as things roll along and stuff happens, and you wind up doing that. I can't tell you exactly. I have to look at my papers. I'm a very poor judge of time, the passage of time.
Right. Well, Spirit always has a way of deciding you're going to become ordained.
Yes,
do you have
I do.
a tale about that?
It just sort of grows on you. You know, I don't know how to explain it. I had no intention of being a minister, and just as I got more deeply involved in the work, it just seemed to be the right flow and direction to go.
Mm-hmm.
No more complicated than that.
Okay, great. Can you tell me because spiritualism is a very old religious discipline, science, philosophy. Can you tell me a little bit about what it has to teach the current student, or those of us who live in the 21st century?
Well, let me see. There's always been spirit communication ever since man first appeared on this planet. Spirit's always been assisting those who are in physical embodiment, and for those who were paying attention, finding ways to communicate. Sacred texts, the Bible and all, and others are full of communication from Spirit. So spirit communication's been going on for thousands of years. We all in physical embodiment are kind of the away team, and the spirit world is our real home. And so those on the other side, we call the world of spirit, work to endeavor to ensure our best success here on our various journeys here. I think that for a long time into the near future, teaching the fact that that there is spirit, who they are, because we're them, quite basically, and that they wish to communicate and assist us in our lives, is going to be vital going forward. I think in particular too, where the way the world's going, if you look at history, civilization's gone through any number of collapses and then rebirths, and I think we will be coming up towards another collapse in our civilization, so that there can be a rebirth again and move on into new principles. And in that collapse, I think that the role of healers and mediums are going to have an important position to assure those who do not understand that yes, that you know, there is hope. This is part of the natural cycle of things. They don't need to be fearful. It can be an important role. For me, the mediumship is part of the body of metaphysics. And metaphysics to me is a huge tent, and includes all manner of spiritual practices and beliefs. You are an expert in Egyptology, and you understand that and many, many spiritual things that occurred in that culture that most of us don't know or understand, but a long history there. And so I don't know, I'm kind of meandering here, I know. It's kind of, I think that the ability for us to help more and more people understand the real nature of life in the world is going to be a critical role for a long time.
That's not going to change.
No.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I believe
My
that's
pleasure.
half an hour, and I appreciate you doing this with me, Terry.
My pleasure.